Donald Trump's criminal indictment has finally been unsealed. We now know what the 34 allegations against him are. 34! 34 is a lot. I mean, it's too much. And it's not misdemeanors. It's all felonies. Now, this is the first time in U.S. history that a former president has been indicated or indicted. So let's talk about the main theme of these charges that has Trump sweating in his suit. The focus of the Manhattan DA was believed to be on Trump's involvement in paying hush money to Stormy Daniels at the end of his 2016 presidential campaign. But as we will discuss, that wasn't the whole story. Hey, I'm Josh Stanford. I'm America's attorney, and I want to make sure that my community understands the legal context behind the important current events going on in our lives. So lawyer up and subscribe to this channel to join that community. Let's start with point one, the arraignment. That happened today. That's a formality that occurs at the beginning of every criminal case. It's not special, it's just the American way. The idea is that anyone charged with a crime is entitled to be told, face to face, what they're being accused of. Of course, it's in writing, and most criminal defendants are aware of what the allegations are, especially by the time they get to the courthouse. Now, you're always given the right to waive the formal reading of the charges against you, and most defendants do, in fact, waive the reading. That's step one. And then you have to enter a plea. Your choices are, generally speaking, guilty, not guilty, or no contest. Now, unless prior arrangements have been made, 99.9% of criminal defendants plead not guilty, which Trump did. Because if you plead guilty, there's no trial. You're just declared guilty. So Trump pleaded not guilty. But what did he plead not guilty to? Well, it was a whole laundry list of charges. I mean, wow, 34 charges. But they're all pretty much the same when you read them. I'm just going to read the 23rd count. And the grand jury aforesaid by this indictment further accuses the defendant of the crime of falsifying business records in the first degree, in violation of Penal Law Section 175.10, committed as follows. The defendant, in the county of New York and elsewhere, on or about September 11th, 2017, with intent to defraud and intent to commit another crime and aid and conceal the commission thereof, made and caused a false entry in the business records of an enterprise, to wit, an invoice from Michael Cohen dated September 11th, 2017, marked as a record of Donald J. Trump and kept and maintained by the Trump Organization. Now, that's one count out of 34. But if I read the other 33 to you, you'd be like, wait, what? Because the only thing that sounds a little bit different is the date. Because it's the same thing over and over, falsifying business records in the first degree. Now, there really are two categories of those charges. Those are relating to the cover-up of the Stormy Daniels alleged affair, and the other relating to the cover-up of the Karen McDougal alleged affair. Let's get one thing straight. It's not the affairs. It's not even the payment of hush money. You know how they always say it's not the crime, it's the cover-up? Well, in this case, it wasn't the crime because marital infidelity is not a crime, and it wasn't the cover-up because paying hush money is not a crime either. Bizarrely, these charges, all 34 of them, are the cover-up of the cover-up. And why is that? Well, if you look at this statute, you can't create falsified business records to cover up what money was actually spent for inside a business. The grand jury said that Trump did just that. Not someone else in the organization, but Trump himself. But for that to be a felony, the falsification has to obscure or tempt to obscure another crime, separate from that. And for that, we look at the campaign finance angle. And what do I mean? It's simple. When you're a candidate for public office, you're accountable to the government, specifically to the Federal Election Commission, for accurate reports about the money that was spent on your campaign and where that money came from. Now, had Trump simply paid the hush money out of his campaign war chest and reported that to the FEC with proper labels, he'd have been in the clear. I mean, legally. Politically, maybe not so much, except that these payments were made right at the end of the campaign. So he's in office. There's so many scandals and so much time that passes during a presidency, I'm not sure that it would have even cost him politically. Remember, he was the one that said that he could kill someone on the middle of Fifth Avenue and his supporters would still support him. And I don't know, maybe he's testing that theory out. I don't know. But this indictment, honestly, it's kind of boring. It's just a timeline of entries of business records. But oftentimes, that's just what white-collar crime is. It's boring. There's no action. You can't make a movie out of it. It's just people operating outside the law. Allegedly. Now, my final point is that the trial date is not set, and the trial is gonna be a zoo. It will be months from now. Now, if Trump doesn't ask for or consent to an extension of the trial date, it has to be within 12 months since he's not in jail. Now, if he were in custody, if he were in a jail, they'd have to get him to trial in 9 months or less, unless he agreed to an extension. But if he does consent to an extension, then his right to a speedy trial is not violated, and this case could get dragged on and on and on. And maybe he wants it dragged out. Maybe he wants it to be over with faster. I mean, all press is good press? Surely not. Here's one thing worth pointing out. All these charges, every single one of them, are related to events that occurred while he was president. Not during the campaign, not back in the day, not in the 80s or the 90s, not when he was on The Apprentice. Now, I don't know if you remember what he promised America when he was running for president, but I do. He said he wasn't going to be involved in the running of his Trump organization. He said that his sons would do that if he was elected, and while he was in office, he'd be focused on America. But each of these 34 counts involves a time when he was in the Oval Office. Come on, man! This controversial arrest and the arraignment and the not guilty plea has both sides of the political spectrum rearing and ready to fight. Some people say Trump isn't above the law. Some people say he's being prosecuted or even persecuted because of a political agenda. And some people are taking the news a little bit better than others. Lock her up. Lock her up. I remember that. I think some people remember that. Now that Trump has entered his plea, both legal teams will start prepping for discovery. Now, discovery is the time where each side gets to find out what is the evidence, what are the records, who are the witnesses that the other side intends to use. Notwithstanding every single dramatic presentation of a trial that you've ever seen in a movie or TV, people are not surprised in the courtroom. We get to find out ahead of time what evidence is going to be used. And these charges are not going to disappear overnight. We are in for a long haul for the Trump trial. And this may not be the only haul, because we have to remember, we cannot forget that Trump is still under at least 3 more criminal investigations for attempting to overturn the 2020 election, including the role that he played in the January 6th attack on the Capitol, for attempting to overturn the election results in Georgia, and for mishandling classified documents. I want to know your pro se opinion on this indictment. Do you feel that politicians should be prosecuted if they've committed a crime, or do you agree that it opens the door to political persecution? What are your thoughts on the charges against Trump? Drop your pro se opinion down below in the comments and stick with me. Lawyer up. I will be back with more videos very soon. Bye.